Not much to be thankful for if you're a Jets fan, I'll tell you that much. This is a team that hasn't made the playoffs since 2010. Last year, the Jets had one of the league's best defenses, but it went to waste because of how historically bad they were on offense. Sam Darnold catching mono really sunk this team's season before it could even get started. He started off 1-7, then went 6-2 over the last 8 to finish 7-9. So it is a sign that maybe the team can take the next leap if Darnold can stay healthy and keep progressing as a quarterback. There's no guaranteeing that because Darnold is too often running for his life, too much back in there in the pocket. Credit to the Jets, they did address their interior offensive line problems in free agency and also drafted a monster of a human being in Mekhi Becton from Louisville. That guy is massive, so raw a little bit, but the upside is definitely there. Then Baylor wide receiver Denzel Mims is going to be a top target on day one for Darnold. And that, to me, is a sign of how little depth the Jets have at wideout. The offense, it should be running through Le'Veon Bell. Just he and head coach Adam Gase don't have that great of a relationship, and Gase needs to figure out how to make the most of a guy whose talents are very obvious as a dynamic runner and a receiver. But Le'Veon's future with the Jets going to depend on how well he performs this year. They got to average more than the 3.3 yards per carry they averaged last season. Defensively, they're fast, aggressive, and really good against the run. In fact, they finished second in rushing yards. That was in 2019. 2020, CJ Mosley opted out, and Jamal Adams wanted out. And so with both those two not around, things are going to look a lot different on defense. Losing Adams especially is a blow to a team that's got the worst group of corners in the NFL. His 6.5 sacks don't just show up out of thin air either. Now, the Jets play 8 teams that finish above 500, which is tied for the second most in the NFL with 4 other teams. So I have them picking up their first win in Week 5 against the Cardinals when they, in Arizona, make their trip to the East Coast. So a win on the road against the Chargers can follow, but then 4 straight losses to teams like the Bills, Chiefs, Patriots, and even the Dolphins, I think, sink this team even more. They beat the Dolphins, I think, out of the bye, lose 3 more, then beat the Browns and lose to the Patriots. So I got them finishing 4-12 and in last place. Last place is where the Dolphins finished last year in a season where they weren't good at anything at all. But if one thing is for sure after last year, it's that Brian Flores is the man for the job, and this looks like a team that's on the upswing of a rebuild. Now, they made a lot of moves this offseason, headlined by bringing in Tua as the quarterback of the future, but without a preseason, he'll be getting a Harvard education with a major in Fitzmagic. And with Tua's injury history, it especially makes sense for a team whose offensive line is absolutely the worst in the league, and turning to first and second round picks to start at both tackle positions without any live preseason reps. Now, crazy enough, Ryan Fitzpatrick was this team's leading rusher last year, but I doubt that happens again. Jordan Howard and Matt Breida should split carries and make Miami respectable on the ground. And last year's defense, they gave up the most points in the league. But in comes Shaq Lawson, Kyle Van Noy, and Emmanuel Ogbah to improve the pass rush, and then the secondary gets Byron Jones on the opposite side of Xavier Howard. The thing is, for as much as the Dolphins are making moves, the reality is there were far too many holes to fill in just one offseason. 4 playoff teams in their first 5 certainly means the Dolphins struggle out of the gate, but not enough to desperately turn to Tua, because this team knows they are still a year away from being a real threat. Week 10 at home versus the Jets feels like the time to turn to Tua, and it makes sense because the way the schedule works, he'd get a bye week the following week to evaluate his performance, and then, weirdly enough, another crack at the Jets in Week 12. So if you're looking at a contending team in Miami, trying to find one, go ahead and check out the Heat. The Marlins, I guess they've surprised teams with the way they've competed in baseball. And, I think the Dolphins will too, even though finishing 4-12 definitely keeps them well out of the playoffs. But I don't think anyone in that organization has a 4-win mindset. 4 wins would be less than last year's total, but their schedule is tougher than like it was last year. So there are other really things you could be looking at, like other barometers for success to keep an eye on. I think the future is bright, though, and pieces are being put in place for them to win later. And win later, though, it's a thought process that never goes through Bill Belichick's mind. It's always been win now with him and the Patriots, even in the midst of change. The Tom Brady era is officially over. I'm not sure if it's going to feel real until kickoff, honestly, but it is. And in comes Cam Newton stepping in to replace him. Now, it's going to be weird watching the Patriots without Tom, but he's not the only familiar face who's not going to return. They'll be without longtime offensive line coach Dante Scarnecchia, and it's an offensive line that will be asked to protect Cam Newton without starting tackle Marcus Cannon, a guy who opted out due to COVID-19 health concerns. Now, that won't make it any easier for Sony Michel to bounce back from his sophomore slump. He only averaged 3.7 yards per carry, though, he should bump that up, I think. The good news is that on the other side of the ball, they'll bring back Defensive Player of the Year Stephon Gilmore, who was instrumental in the Patriots being the league's #1 defense last year. But also, guys like Kyle Van Noy, Jamie Collins, and Danny Shelton, they were big parts too, and they left the team in free agency. And then guys like Dante Hightower and Patrick Chung, who are just a few more of the Patriots' league-high number of COVID-19 opt-outs, not going to return to that defense. So they'll still be good, but just don't expect a historic performance like they had last year. But there is a reason they'll still play 5 primetime games this year, which is tied for most of the NFL. And that's because last time that I checked, the Patriots still compete in the AFC East, where they won 11 straight titles. And they're an exciting team with Cam Newton and then a guy in Bill Belichick who just knows how to win. They got Cam Newton now on a team-friendly deal. Just the only question is going to be whether or not the offensive weapons are good enough with that kind of receiver depth and unproven tight ends. Now, it's hard to imagine the Patriots winning under 10 games, but it could be possible given the fact that they have the NFL's toughest schedule according to last year's win percentage. I would see this team winning more games, but unfortunately, getting out of the gate slow might happen. I see them going 9-7, but with that gauntlet of a schedule, Cam Newton's stable play as a comeback player of the year candidate does enough to earn them a wild card spot. Now, the Patriots are almost widely favored every single year to win that division, but things are different. This isn't quite a passing of the torch, I'd say, so don't write the obituary on the Pats because New England is still really good. But Buffalo has been around for some time now, and they're a franchise that is definitely heading in the right direction. The question is, how much better can Josh Allen be a quarterback? And now with Stephon Diggs arriving to town, is it time that he really takes the next step? Buffalo was pathetic passing the football last year with just 201 passing yards per game. But Allen's continuity with Cole Beasley out of the slot and then John Brown on the outside should improve. And then you bring in Stephon Diggs as the ultimate prize of the offseason. So there really is no excuse for Josh Allen to not be better in the air, especially because the Bills need him to be more than a guy with a strong arm who just makes highlight plays. If, that's going to be the case, they're not going to return to the playoffs. They definitely need more from Josh Allen. The good news for Buffalo's offense is they run the ball so well behind a very dependable and athletic offensive line. Devin Singletary averaged 5 yards a pop on the ground, and then Josh Allen made some magic happen with his feet too. And then the move I really liked was adding third-round running back Zach Moss, who was the Pac-12's Offensive Player of the Year and now becomes the Thunder to Devin Singletary's Lightning. Over on the other side of the ball, Buffalo's been a top 3 defense for 2 straight years with that base 4-3 zone cover scheme of theirs. And even though guys like Jordan Phillips and Lorenzo Alexander are gone, they've set the foundation for talented young guys like Ed Oliver and Tremaine Edmonds, who I expect to really hold down the front 7 with a solid secondary in the back with Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde at safety, and then Tre'Davious White earning an extension as one of the best corners in football. The lone question mark is going to be with Josh Norman playing corner on the other side. He hasn't been good in a while, but the Bills aren't paying him much and are hoping maybe a change of scenery can help things. And Sean McDermott's a great coach, so it could happen. This team might be better this year, but it also could be tough for them to improve their record because they play the AFC West and the NFC West. So that means they'll play the 2 Super Bowl teams from last year and then other tough teams in those divisions as well. Now, they played 3 games on a short week this year, and their last 5 with 3 primetime games. So a 10-6 team last year. I think they'll be 10-6 again, but this time as AFC East division champions.